Acting Deputy Director of International Marketing and Promotions, Cayman Islands Department of Tourism, and Mr. Mark Langevin, President of the Cayman Islands Tourism Association, or CETA. We'd like to also welcome members of the media and, of course, you, the viewing public. We'd like to begin this morning's press briefing with the Honorable Minister.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Donna, and thank you for that welcome. And thank you for offering your services this morning to be the moderator of today's press conference, as you wonderfully do. As you all heard Donna say, we have some great announcements in respect to employment opportunities for Caymanians as we move closer to the reopening date of our borders. I do anticipate there'll be a number of questions once you've heard from myself and my fellow panel members, and we look forward to answering those questions at the conclusions of our presentations. I want to thank those in the press and those who are watching online via YouTube and Facebook for taking out the time as we share these important developments with you. As you know, one of my top priorities as Minister of Tourism is finding the appropriate roadmap that results in Caymanians being employed in our tourism product. You also know that the government has announced our reopening plan and are planning for the return of tourism in the coming months. As such, I established a committee called the Remobilization Committee with the public-private sector partnership that has been established to ensure that all efforts have been made to re-employ our displaced Caymanian workers so that they can be at the forefront of our tourism product. I am pleased to share that the Remobilization Committee's mission and vision have been carefully crafted to keep us focused on this important pathway. The mission of the committee is to form a collaborative and data-driven approach towards understanding the needs of our labor market and the Caymanian supply to place and train persons within the industry. And the vision is to maximize the opportunities through a collaborative approach to ensure Caymanians are a priority for job opportunities in the reopening plan, and to develop further mechanisms/pathways in the tourism industry to ensure the increase of Caymanian career development and participation. The Remobilization Committee has several action plans that are currently in process. One that you are likely aware of is the Tourism Stipend Survey, which was a mandatory survey to learn more about those who are receiving the government's current stipend. Mr. Gary Hendricks Dominguez from the Department of Tourism will share those results of the survey and more details about this important data set later in the press conference. Another critical element of our action plan has been the identification of possible job opportunities with stakeholder businesses from the Cayman Islands Tourism Association. I'm happy to say that our collaboration with CETA is growing stronger and stronger. They have presented us with quantifiable data of employment opportunities for Caymanians that will become the integral part of our remobilization strategy. However, I don't want to take away the thunder from Mr. Mark Langevin, which has a lot of thunder himself, the president of CETA, who you will be hearing more from shortly in this presentation. So first, we're going to discuss about how the collections of both sets of data will be shared with our partners at work with the C, that is, which establishes the starting point of our pathways to getting Caymanians back into the tourism jobs. I would like to thank the Honorable Deputy Premier, the Minister responsible for work, for his support and help throughout this goal. Without him, I don't think this strategy would have worked. With that being said, I would like to now turn it over to the Acting Director of Work, Ms. Laura Watler, who will explain how we will execute these strategies of this very important plan.
Good morning, and thank you, Minister Bryan. Firstly, let me explain both subcommittees' objectives for everyone's understanding. The Job Placement Committee objectives are to collect data from both surveys of the displaced workers and the Cayman Islands Tourism Association members. Data sharing and analysis, the posting of jobs by CETA, hiring for the border reopening period, candidate assessments, creating a mechanism for job pairing, which means matching, interviewing, and hiring, continuously reviewing the process and establishing measurements of success. The Job Training Committee objectives are looking at the gap analysis, which identifies the varieties of positions, needs, and human capital, designing different programs for development needs, private and public collaboration for industry partnerships, as well as creating individual training pathways, identifying the financial support also for these programs. Now, for what these committees are doing and what they will be focused on, the following workflow shows you visually as I go along. Stage 1, which is where we currently are, is the data collection piece, which will feed into the central system of work. This crucial data collection assists us in knowing who is a tourism displaced worker and the tourism jobs that are available. We currently know that the jobs potentially range from retail clerks and sales, HR, finance, and administration, front desk and concierge, cooks and stewards, and also includes technical, which is security, AV, and information technology. Stage 2, which we hope to move to once the data is received from the Cayman Islands Tourism Association on Friday, will enable work to better serve the human capital of the tourism workforce in further knowing who our job seekers are and what jobs are wanted. We endeavor to know who our Caymanian workforce is, which increases the transparency. From the stipend survey, results show of the persons who took the survey, over 500 of those are already registered with work and will soon receive information regarding the next steps. The results also provided a breakdown of job seekers by district. This will enable work to host registration drives to assist in in-person registrations. Dates and venues will be released soon. We will be able to compare job listings from the Cayman Islands Tourism Association data with the workforce data and conduct the initial analysis on potential placements, which means looking at potential job matches ahead of assessments. Stage 3 is mainly focused around the expansion of Stage 2 in order to gain a deeper knowledge of the job seeker. This extends specifically to determining what career they want, what skills they have, what training they may need, careers that are available, skills needed, and the training required and available from CETA and work. Registering with work is important so that we know more about the potential employee in order to be able to place the job seeker correctly. Work officers will conduct accurate assessments of current skill sets of the job seeker to be matched accurately to the employer so that a plan can be created to facilitate the job seeker in finding employment. We think the structure will create a career path that will have long-term success. This is essential to the growth of our Caymanian tourism product and having Caymanians at the forefront. During the assessment stage, there may be job seekers who need additional training before matching in order to fit their long-term goals. The plan has accounted for such findings. Stage 4 is looking at the fit with the job seeker and potential CETA employer. This may require some training specific to a property, so we have also accounted for that. Stage 5, we know the job seeker has been successfully placed and onboarded to the company. During Stage 5, work will also review why they were not successful and will continue to work with the person to seek a successful placement. At each stage, there are checks and reviews to ensure the process is efficiently working. Work is here to support the community throughout this process. Tourism displaced workers are encouraged to register via Work's Jobs Cayman portal and to know that we are here to assist Caymanian job seekers with career support, placement, training, upskilling, and refresher courses. Work's role in this includes tracking, but also serving as a central place to support and manage the workforce that is ready, willing, and able to support the industry. To register with Work, please go to jobs.worc.gov.ky and register by Monday, 16th August 2021. On behalf of Work, we want to thank everyone for filling out the survey, as it is crucial data that will help us assist you and fill any gaps which will be vital to the success of this initiative.
Thank you so much, Ms. Laura. As you can tell, our team is working very, very hard. And I want to say thank you to your team for all that you do and all you're going to do to put Caymanians back in the tourism industry. We're also thankful to have the commitment of private sector and to work collaboratively with them. CETA has identified over 1,500 jobs, and I would like to say it's closer to 2,000, but I'm going to stick to 1,500 for now, that needs to be filled. These jobs range from entry level to management positions, as you heard Ms. Laura say, from work. That being said, I would like to take this time now to invite Mr. Mark Langevin to share more about CETA's commitment to this strategy that you heard me speak about a little bit earlier.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone. On behalf of the Cayman Island Tourism Association, representing more than 300 companies and thousands of dedicated tourism employees, I am truly appreciative to be here and invited to participate in this press conference. I'm even more grateful for the opportunity provided by Minister of Tourism to work jointly with key governmental agencies and ensure Cayman recruitment success in the remobilization process. It has been a wonderful experience to work collaboratively to build a strong relationship with these professional public servants who are essential in the success of this initiative. This is a powerful demonstration of the effectiveness of working together through such a challenging time by identifying key issues, building on the strengths of our diversity, breaking the silo that can exist between private sectors and government, while ensuring that our action were all supported by verified data. As we are preparing for the reopening of our destination to tourism, the CETA members are committed to make a genuine effort in recruiting, training, and building the strong foundation necessary to ensure the continuous success of Caymanian in our tourism industry. We hope that this initiative will set path for future collaboration in the difficult road ahead of our full reopening, but also recovery period. There are so many other challenges that we are foreseeing in the reopening process that need to be addressed, of course. One will be the logistical coordination necessary to navigate the various stages of the reopening path proposed by the government for stayover and later on for the cruise industry. The obstacles foreseen in the remobilization of work permit holders, especially as the world goes through such a disrupted global environment. The development of needed economic support for our tourism-related business during this extended recovery period, and eventually the long-term planning for the sustainable evolution of our tourism industry, our product, and eventually our human capital. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Mark. Again, as I said before, we're growing stronger and stronger in respect to this relationship. So as I shared last week at CETA's meeting, having Caymanians in the industry will create an authentic and sustainable product in our country in the short term and long term when it comes to tourism. Before we take your questions, I'd like to take this opportunity to give you a copy of the stipend survey data results that we have collected. So my team will be passing out that survey to all the media in the house. It'll also be available on the following online following this conference at stipend.ourcayman.ky. I say that again, at stipend.ourcayman.ky. I would like to thank the hardworking team at the Department of Tourism for handling the stipend program from inception to present, including this very important survey. They not only stepped up to make the program, stepped up in helping our industry. Forgive me, let me start that over. They not only stepped up to make the program and its operations a success, but went above and beyond, helping our industry to find a relief during this pandemic. I must take this opportunity to say that I'm truly, truly honored to be the minister in charge of this department. I must say I'm the luckiest minister of all 8. With that being said, I turn it over now to my Acting Deputy Director of International Marketing and Promotions from the Department of Tourism, Mr. Gary Hendricks Dominguez, who will give us a closer look at the survey results with this short presentation. Gary?
Thank you, Minister Bryan. Good morning, everyone. Today I'm here to reveal some of the key data from the Tourism Displaced Employee Survey. As Minister Bryan said, the survey will be available online for you to download and thoroughly read. So we'll do a quick overview. The Cayman Islands Department of Tourism, in collaboration with CETA, Work, and the Ministry of Tourism and Transport, coordinated a short online survey that was done between the 23rd of June to the 2nd of July. We made a decision to extend the survey until the 6th of July to provide recipients with additional time. Stipend recipients who did not complete the survey by the deadline were then called by the Department of Tourism until we reached a 91.5% survey completion. The data presented today is based on this completion rate. The team is working on reaching a 100% completion by assisting those who may have had difficulties during this period. We're currently at a 96% overall completion rate. For recipients who have not yet completed the survey, I ask you to email stipend@caymanislands.ky or call the Department of Tourism at 949-0623. The data that we'll present today is broken into 4 categories. The first one being a profile on the tourism displaced employee, employment analysis, and how some of this data will help us preparing for border reopening, as well as future planning for the industry. So we'll begin with the profile on who are the tourism displaced employees. The gender breakdown for the tourism employee recipient is 55%, or 1,708 persons being female, and 45%, or 1,399 persons being male. The age of the persons receiving the stipend skews towards a mature group, with 50% of those persons who completed a survey being over the age of 47. Only 27% of respondents were 35 years or younger. The average age of respondents was 46.3 years old. Females had an average age of 47.4, while males were 44.9. This shows the emphasis for us to expand our current programs to get more young Caymanians involved in the industry. The team will use this data to analyze further how best we can support this goal. I encourage all young Caymanians who have not considered a career in tourism to visit our cayman.ky to learn more about the various training programs offered by the Cayman Islands Department of Tourism. I also remind everyone that the Ministry of Tourism also provides a scholarship for young Caymanians aspiring to work in the tourism industry. So, where do they live? West Bay had 40% share, or 1,244 persons, followed by Georgetown, which is 31%, or 973 persons. Then Bordentown with 21%, or 648 persons. Both Northside and East End equated to 3% each, with Northside having 100 persons and East End 95 persons. Cayman Brac represented 1%, or 36 persons, with Little Cayman having 11. Most recipients reported that they primarily served stayover visitors, which represent 64%, or 2,000 persons. Even though cruise was selected by just 36%, or 1,107 persons, this is large enough to impact the overall well-being of tourism workers. In addition, it should be noted that persons who selected the stayover option are also impacted by the cruise visitation. The accommodation sector accounted for 1,130 persons, or 36% of persons surveyed. This is more than 1 in every 3 persons. The number of applicants from the accommodation sector was 57% of those who stated that they primarily served the stayover visitors. Other sectors with workers who stated that they were primarily impacted by stayover visitation were airport services, food services, and car rental workers. So now we take a look at some of the positions that were held before the COVID-19 pandemic, and we see that 12% of persons reported that they were in housekeeping attendant or similar. And then we had 10% sales clerk or similar, and 8% bus driver or similar. Survey respondents were asked how many years of experience they had in the tourism industry. 70% of them indicated that they had over 6 years experience. We'll now look at their current employment analysis. So when recipients were asked about their current employment status, 49%, or 1,537, stated that they are currently not employed, and 51%, or 1,570 persons, stated that they are presently employed. Of those currently not employed, 10% stated that they were currently earning an income. Of those that are currently employed, 1,098, or 70%, are still within the tourism industry. The remainder 30% have found employment in other sectors. This can be broken down into 24% stay in other category, 21% retail, and 13% in the construction industry. For those employed, only 35% said that they were working a typical 5-day week. 65% state that they're not actually working a typical 5-day week. This can be further broken down by working hours per week. Of those currently employed, 74% are currently working less than 30 hours per week. While being employed, 1,095 persons, or 70%, stated that they would be interested in obtaining another job to supplement their income. So how does this information help us with preparing for border reopening? First, a large majority, or 2,691 persons, or 87%, of the survey persons would like to return to the same job they had prior to COVID-19. When we asked if they were registered with work, only 33% said they were registered, and 67% said that they were not registered. We encourage those persons who have not registered as yet to please log on to the work job portal to register today. Additionally, the Department of Tourism will be crafting and distributing an email in collaboration with work to provide recipients with guidance on registering with work. For stipend recipients who have additional registration questions, please get in touch with work directly to learn more about how you can register. Vaccination. So 2,124 persons, or 68%, stated that they are presently vaccinated. Of the 962 persons who are not vaccinated, 73%, or 692 persons, would consider getting the vaccine if they are employed in the tourism industry. Over 91%, or 2,816 persons, have said that they are vaccinated or would consider getting vaccinated. So how does this help us with future planning? Of the persons surveyed, 84%, or 2,609 persons, stated that they would be willing to participate in future tourism training. Respondents were asked of the Cayman Islands tourism and hospitality industry if they're aiming, what are they aiming for in the next 3 to 5 years? And we see this chart which breaks out that 20% of them aspire to move into accommodation and guest relations, so front desk, concierge service, tour guide representing 18%, food and beverage 12%, marketing and public relations, water sports, housekeeping, event planning, and the list goes on. This information will assist the Ministry and Department of Tourism in modifying current programs, as well as developing and executing future training programs to propel and encourage more Caymanians to participate in the tourism industry. To learn more about the various education opportunities offered by the Cayman Islands Department of Tourism, please visit ourcayman.ky. In summary, let's take a look at the current situation, the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the tourism displaced employees, concerns, and lastly, opportunities. Currently, we have an average age of 46.3 persons, 46.3 years old, with 64% from stayover and 36% from cruise. I should add that we have 3,396 displaced tourism employees at this time, as we are currently verifying the last batch that we just recently closed. We have an experienced tourism industry with 70% of them stating that they have 6 years or more experience, and 87 of them are willing to go back to their previous position. So what sort of assumptions that we can make of the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic? We know that 49% of the recipients are currently not employed. Of the 51% that are employed, 74% of them are working fewer than 30 hours a week, which equates to 86.7% of all persons surveyed having significantly reduced or no income at this time. Some of the concerns that have come out of this survey is that we do have an aging workforce, which signifies a need to encourage younger Caymanians to join the industry. Again, I encourage those persons that are interested in joining the industry to visit ourcayman.ky and learn more about our various training and education opportunities. We know that 36% of the recipients are from the cruise sector and will have to be retooled until the return of cruise tourism. And we know that 67% of the recipients are currently not registered with work at this time. I encourage all persons who have not registered to please do so. Lastly, we have several opportunities coming out of this information. Firstly, 84% of stipend recipients were interested in future tourism training. This shows a significant interest for us to expand our current training offerings to help propel and grow our industry. We know that 90% of the recipients are vaccinated or would consider getting vaccinated, which will ultimately help us towards our 80% goal. And lastly, this information gives us a baseline to help guide us moving forward. In collaboration with WORK, the Ministry of Tourism and Transport, private sector, we can better support, develop, and propel more Caymanians into the tourism industry with this data. Additionally, we will also take a deeper look at the information we have and correlate it with other key data to find additional trends and patterns to help us support our industry. For those of you interested in reading the full report, please visit stipend.ourcayman.ky. The information presented today is a summary of all the data collected. You may have additional questions, which I think reading the full report will help answer some of those questions. Thank you. I'll now hand it over to the Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Hendricks Dominguez. As I said to you, I'm honored to be the Minister of Tourism. As you can tell, the government is committed and has a plan of action to get Caymanians back to work. Today is about the short term in respect to our reopening plan, but data collected will help us facilitate the long-term goals of the Remobilization Committee. A lot of data you just saw presented, which will guide us in our pathways. The goals of the Remobilization Committee are as follows. 1, to get 100% of the displaced workers to be actively registered with work. Number 1 priority. Second, getting displaced tourism workers who are willing and able return to full employment in the tourism industry. Lastly, ensuring 100% of the Ministry of Tourism scholars, School of Hospitality graduates, and university graduates with tourism-related degrees given the opportunity of employment in our tourism sector. These 3 I refuse to fail on. Ultimately, we want to make tourism work for all of us, and this is just the beginning of what we're going to be doing to protect our tourism product and our people and ensure it strives in the future. As my colleagues from work has shared, the deadline for displaced tourism workers to register on the Jobs Cayman portal is Monday, the 16th of August. So let me make that clear. All persons who are receiving the stipend, I want you registered with work. The deadline for that, this is mandatory, and the deadline for that is Monday, the 16th of August. Without your participation, this plan does not work. The government is assisting you. I think it's right that you do the right thing by getting registered for work. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is. It's now time for all Caymanians in the tourism sector and the workers to do their part and get registered. We in the government are doing all that we can to create these pathways for you, our people, and to get you back to gainful employment as we move closer to the opening of our borders. With that being said, I now turn it back over to my amazing Donna Bush so we can start with answering all of these amazing questions I know that are coming.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'd like to begin the Q&A session this morning by inviting Mr. Ralph Lewis from the Canadian.
Thank you, Donna, and good morning to members of the panel, and thank you for inviting me to this press briefing. Mr. Minister, I applaud you and the sector for collaborating to address this important issue. I have two brief questions and allow my other colleagues to ask some of their own. The survey, will you be extending it to other members in the public after this first section is done? As you know, there may be others who are not on the stipends who may want to move into the tourism industry. You plan to extend it to those?
Not this specific survey, but as you have heard this administration say through our premier, this is going to be a data-driven administration, and you'll start to see more programs like this in the future, particularly that from the Honorable Deputy Premier and Minister for Work, as we start to strategize with information from data that we collect to make our decisions. So this is one of those examples, because right now we need to start making actions to assist the membership and stakeholders within the tourism sector with those who we have unemployed right now. So we're working on strategies. We're going to be trying to get more people with that mindset of collection of data and analysis to help us with that. So when we make decisions, we know results are going to be there. So the answer to that is yes, but not currently at this moment. We're trying to focus on the reopening of the borders.
Thank you. The second question to you again, sir, is wages. Has been one of the concerns that wages are not attractive enough for Caymanians or people living here to be able to live within those means. With your discussions with the sector, have you all talked about the level of wages that are currently being paid to those workers?
Yeah, I think it's not a surprise or something that CETA is not aware of, and they can speak for themselves with their representative here, that everybody wants higher wages. In respect to the government's position, we're currently reviewing the minimum wage, and hopefully the minimum wage committee can have some more information, data-driven information for us to make a decision in the future. But I'll allow the CETA president to respond to any wages concerns as stakeholder.
Thank you.
Quite interesting that that conversation came early as we were starting to dialogue. And as a CETA organization, we actually made a survey among all our membership and trying to understand actually where we were. Obviously, the way we distribute wages is different because in our wages, there is a component which is the salaries, and then there is in our industry another component which is obviously the gratuity, tips, and so on. So we really went out in our entire organization and tried to find where we were. And at the end of the day, we shared that information back with the Minister of Tourism. And there was clearly evidence that actually even our entry-level job was at a level that is certainly way above the current minimum wage. At the time, it's somewhere around the $30,000 CI per year for a really basic, after that going up to some very good attractive salaries. So I think sometimes it's a perception, or it's things that are repeated in the community, but not necessarily driven by data, as we say.
Okay, and since you were answering, there's one more question. In your experience in hiring local employees in that industry, can you speak to the quality of the performance, or can you say whether Caymanians really want to be in that industry or not?
Well, we have, I think the things have changed a lot over the years. There is more and more people, they come and actually choose that as a career. So, I mean, I'm very encouraged by what is happening. We have more and more very high quality. Now, obviously, our industries have a very wide spectrum of different products. So I think that eventually everybody should find a job in our industry. But we certainly would want more high-level education. We certainly would want to have more people that choose that as a career.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Donna.
Okay, thank you very much, Ralph. I'd like to now call on Norma Connolly from the Compass.
Morning.
Good morning, Ms. Norma.
Just a few questions. I've been trying to digest all the numbers from that survey. There's quite a bit of information in there, but maybe we'll ask an easy one first. Mr. Bryan, regarding the mandatory registration
Yes.
with work, if people choose not to register, will they lose their stipend?
I'm not going to go that far right now, but I will encourage, and where's the camera? It is mandatory. Please don't let me have to make any decisions in that respect. We're all working together to help our people. Even if you have a job right now, let us know. This exercise is about understanding the labor market, particularly for our people. We're not here to try to stop you from getting assistance. We just need to understand to make the right decisions. So it is mandatory. If I don't see people making the right choices, then I will discuss with my colleagues if I have to take harsher penalties in respect to that. But I think that we're going to do the positive right thing. So I expect people to all get registered.
And is there any relevance to the specific date that's been set, the 16th of August, I think you said?
Well, no specific reason other than the fact is we need to get this ball rolling now. As you saw the layout, work has to start matching people up. CETA, though we do not have the exact number specific, ranged our discussions of over 1,800. I said 1,500 because I want to be more reserved in respect to the expectations. So that number of jobs need to start matching up. We're getting closer and we're excited. I am about potentially opening on October 4th. I think that's the date that most memberships of industry is looking to. That's the date that if we are happy with the vaccination numbers, that we will allow people to come into our country who are securely verified. So we got a lot of work to do, particularly, and again, I thank the Honorable Deputy Premier for assisting in this, has a lot of work to do. So we need the people to do their part now. As you saw with the data, only 33% are registered with work. Am I correct? 33%. So we have 67% of the persons out there not registered with work. And if you don't give people a deadline, they'll just procrastinate. So we sat down and said, okay, 10 days is a reasonable amount of time to do the right thing. And again, I say, please just get registered. It is not hard. Work is going to be trying to facilitate. We have an online version available for you to do so. If you would rather do it in person, there will be a meeting points at various different hotels, and I won't be held committed to that until we make those announcements. Actually, Laura, would you like to tell them about some of the places and options that we're going to do for those who do not do it online?
Right. So the one that we have confirmed is actually tomorrow at the East End Civic Center from 9 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. tomorrow, Friday, 6th of August, 2021. So we'll be publishing them after the press briefing so that everybody has access to where we're going to be and how you can come. And also, we also have facilities at the work offices to be able to enable you to register in person there.
Yeah. So we that being said, you're seeing that we're facilitating every option available because the data is so important. So we need people registered. So we expect that within the next 10 days that maybe there may be only about 5%, hopefully, or even less, who need to be in-person registration. And we do that because we understand that not everybody is tech savvy or efficient on online platforms and so forth. But between the online version and work's commitment to going across the island or in office, everybody should have an opportunity to be registered, and there should be no excuses.
Thank you for that. Also, regarding the reopening date, we're going to have, I guess, more overseas workers coming in as well to fill the gaps if we can't find enough people locally. And I think you addressed this briefly at the CETA meeting the other day, but is additional resources going to be going to work both to deal with processing extra work permits and also dealing with this entire registration of 2,000 workers?
Yes. Again, I thank the Honorable Deputy Premier for his commitment to this process. He understands fully the labor workload that is necessary. It's not like your normal times where things flow as time come. What you may have is kind of like a Black Friday event where boom, everybody wants to do it. And we are well aware of that. We've even requested for some more labor specifically for this merging. As you know, Caymanians are our top priority, not work permit holders. So we've if my memory serves me well, we're going to get a team specific just for this stipend workers, and obviously adding the any more staffing necessary for the added workload for work permit holders based on the demand from industry. So we're well aware of it, and the government is committed to assisting the work department in any capacity to make sure it's running efficiently and fluently.
Any numbers at this point that you can give us,
I hope
money-wise or staffing-wise for work?
Not at this point. I don't want to be held to a specific number and I get miscued in the media. So and I would actually like to leave that to the minister responsible to make that announcement. And I'm quite sure he'd be happy to send out either a press release in the coming weeks as to what is developing within that ministry.
Okay. This is a question I think either you or Mr. Langevin could answer, or even Ms. Watler. You spoke about the additional training that people may need. Who's picking up the bill for that? Will that be something that is paid for by the individual companies within CETA for additional training, or is it something that government will pick up the bill for and then they'll be slotted into various jobs that are available for them within the industry?
Okay, I'll take a jab at the first answer and then Mark can add on afterwards, because as unfortunately I don't think the graphic was showing people at the very start. But there's going to be 3 different categories of training opportunities, and we suspect that most people of those numbers would fall in the first one, which is basically re-entry into the industry training. And those things are done mostly on the job. So for instance, you go down to the amazing hotel at the Ritz and they say, okay, this is what you call onboarding. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Onboarding. So, get you familiar. You used to work at the Marriott and the Ritz do different things. So you're training on the job for about 5 or 6 days, but you're technically already working. We expect most persons to fall within that kind of a category, because if persons were to go back exactly to what they were doing before, maybe just with a different company, your training is more related to the specific company that you're working for. But there may be people who may want to transition from a different category of work. Say, for example, a bellman may say, I want to transition now into front desk. Now, obviously, being a bellman may be a little bit different than front desk work. So you may have to have a little bit more training that will be offered either through collaborations with government and industry to give them that little training that may be 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before in collaboration. So there's going to be ongoing assessment of this training. Stage 3 is persons who've never been in an industry before, that depending on where they want to go. So if you've never been in an industry before, but you want to be a beach man or a beach woman for that fact, there's not as much skill set necessary for that. But if you are aspiring to go into senior management because you're coming from administration, maybe you may need a little bit more training as to how hotel industry works. And then there will be offerings as I continue to develop the tourism, forgive me, what's it called again? Hospitality school. Forgive me. Sorry, a lot of information. So as we develop these other training opportunities, we don't suspect that a lot of that is going to happen. I think that's the long-term approach. But the short term is more onboarding, or maybe just because you're switching the position, that about 2 to 3 weeks beforehand. Hence the reason we got to start now. We're working against time here. October 5th, 14th is in my mind the magical date if all goes and nothing conspires against us. So we got to get the ball rolling now because the work has a lot of work to do. Yeah.
I just want to compliment that as a CETA, we will be there, be able to provide our facility, our knowledge, our experience throughout all those training. I mean, those are not going to be at charge. We're going to certainly supply with that. Now, what we will have to converse is how to facilitate, all those workers to go and attend the training or any kind of support we could have. So that's something that we hope we find collaboration. But throughout any level of training counts on us as an industry to be able to provide all the training to support the development. So I think it's a very important factor. And again, it's when we're talking about that onboarding, every establishment is different. It's a different operation or training for somebody that run a water sports, that somebody who work a restaurant or some large corporate that can take weeks of training depending on the technical of the position. But those are at the cost of obviously the employers. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. My final question: obviously all of this depends on us hitting the 80%. Is there any information you can share with us at this point about any kind of extra vaccination drive the government may be planning in a push to reach that number?
Yes, again, I'm going to invite my team to give you some announcements to that. But we are committed to shooting for that 80. I know it's a hard task, and I think everybody recognizes how difficult it is. But if you know anything about myself as well as this administration, we believe that there's many things that are hard that can be accomplished, and we're committed to that. And I'm not even going to talk about if we don't get there. Right now, I'm not in that mindset. We're shooting for it. But we do have some announcements as to how to help us get there. So I'll turn that over to Gary.
Thank you for that. Today, and I don't want to steal their thunder if they haven't done as yet, but DMS Broadcasting has taken on a challenge to actually put up a grand prize of $100,000 for those persons that have been vaccinated and persons who are going to get vaccinated. They'll also be working with the HSA to do spot prizes and referral prizes as well. So I recommend logging on to the DMS page or their various radio station Facebook page to learn more about the specifics and who's eligible and how you can drop your name in the hat to be eligible to win that $100,000.
So one person will win $100,000.
Yes, it's a grand prize of $100,000, and then they have various spot prizes as well that they will give for just on the day of persons going to get vaccinated, and then they also have opportunities for persons who are referring persons. So if you want to help some of your friends, get them in the car, bring them down there, make sure that you bring your vaccinated card and work with the HSA administrative desk there to actually get an extra raffle ticket to drop your name in there.
Packing my car with people.
I just want to add one more thing to that. There have been other private sector individuals who have reached out to the government to assist. I got notice from the Minister for Commerce where there's a private individual who wants to offer a lot of land, a house lot in a developed area as an incentive. So I'm not going to give you all the details yet, but you may see some more press releases from myself, and along with some other incentives. So the private sector is really stepping up, and I think that we all want to do this. And I'm so happy that DMS has stepped up to the plate and been the first driver. And as that announcement happened at the CETA meeting, then there was other calls afterwards, and it's not going to only take that. The many things you're doing. I'm happy to see that many employers are starting to say, employees, you need to get vaccinated. So I'm really happy about that, because ideally that is the key focus to getting us reopened and keeping us safe. So some more announcements coming soon.
And CETA is also going to be announcing soon the winner. As you know, we had to put some price, 25,000, 10,000 in cash, and the other 15,000 in different prices. So we're going to also announce that in the next week, who is going to be the winner. So we are all in it together.
Okay, thank you. That's it.
Thank you, Norma. I'd like to now call on Wendy from CNS.
Hello, everyone.
Good morning, Wendy.
Morning, Minister Bryan. Yours is the first question, actually. You mentioned an October date. I'm a bit confused about that. What were you talking about when you said, I think, the 14th of October? What is that date? Okay,
so, and maybe I should, clarify when I say these things. So, as you know, we have 5 phases, and we're currently in phase 2. The next phase is phase 3 in September the 9th. That's what we call the soft reopening, which ultimately we transfer from repatriation flights back to the Open Skies Agreement, which allows all airlines to start flying if they choose to. Right now, we seen, because in that phase, they were still requiring a 5-day quarantine, that most stakeholders and airlines and even industry has said, you know what, most people are aiming more for the other date on the 14th if all goes well in respect to the reopening, because that's the first time within our plan where a person can travel to the Cayman Islands who have been securely verified to be vaccinated that can come off the plane and not have to quarantine. So with the average of 5.5 days of stay across our stay over tourism, the industry is only saying that they would start to come as of the 14th. So technically speaking, our soft reopening is on the 9th of September, but industry and indicators show that most people would want to come after the 14th of October date.
Okay, thanks for that. Next question, which is really the mandatory registration. What about small businesses, micro businesses? So people who own a business, they're getting the stipend because their business is effectively like aside, maybe a small snorkeling shop or something, you know. Will they be required to register to get their stipend? What's the situation for them?
Well, any business grant is different from the employee stipend. I guess it could be confused from the fact that a self-employed individual who owns the business but also is the employee.
Yeah, exactly.
He's technically the employee. So this is for the stipend recipients for the 1,500. If you are a business and you got a business grant or an assistance in some other way, that's not this.
What about the ones that say they've got their staff and that as soon as the borders open, they know that they're getting their job back?
I don't understand the question.
Okay, so workers for small businesses that are still employed by the small business, but he can't afford to pay them or they can't afford to be paid. So they're getting a stipend from government, but they're going straight back to their job once the borders open. You still want them to register for work to find another job.
Anybody who is receiving the stipend from government
they have to, okay.
has to register.
Unless you're an actual owner.
No, anybody who is receiving the stipend, whether you're an owner or not,
So
if you're receiving the $1,500 stipend, we want you registered. So now the purpose of this is not to say, okay, if you were the owner of the company, you just want to register because you pass on the information to work to say, I own the company, I expect to be working myself. And the purpose for that is for us to analyze all the information to say, okay, then we can put these people aside because they're going to be okay. They own their own business. Or we can put these people aside because they've actually gotten another job and establish who is it that need to be worked and take the data we've gotten from CETA and match those who need the work and get them employed. So that's the purpose. It's not necessarily to say you need a job. You may have a job, but I need to know that you have a job so I can be assured that that they're going to be okay as per the PACS administration's commitments to Caymanians.
So on the other side of the coin, we're going to have CETA are going to be supplying all of the jobs that they have.
Yes.
So, for example, we're talking about putting aside all of these resources because we're going to have lots and lots of work permit applications. We're looking at 1,500 in that survey, 1,500 unemployed people, 1,500 jobs. I mean, a lot of people are going to be saying, well, there you go.
Well, that's basically how I see it.
So what's the need for all these resources for their work permits? Because they don't need any work permit, in theory.
Well, I don't think that necessarily is a fair assessment because this is only CETA members, right? Not everybody is a registered member of CETA. And the numbers that we're working with is the numbers that we do know. So, for example, many of the stipend workers don't work for places that are CETA membership owners, business owners. So we're working with those figures, and I predict, and this is not to be focusing on work permit holders, but the administration has to ensure that CETA has the labor and stakeholders have the labor they need. It's pretty straightforward. Caymanians first, once we sort that approach out, have to be able to assist the businesses with the labor they need. And if that means outside labor, then do so. But putting Caymanians first as to those who want those jobs. Because we can't not facilitate the labor they need. We'll be screwing up the tourism market. So we're mindful of that. They are mindful of our commitment to Caymanians first and understand it and respect it. Hence the reason the relationship is going well. As I said, they presented to us, and I think the final figures are coming out on Friday, a breakdown of all the different categories of jobs available from their stakeholder membership, exactly how many jobs are in each category. And that's the information Laura and her team at work is going to use to say, okay, after all the stipend recipients have registered, which ones want to work, match that with those jobs. Once we got them all, anybody who wants work, because obviously you can use those who are not getting stipend money as well to say, oh, there's a job here. Do you want to apply for this? And if we find that we've filtered all that out and they still need workers, we have to assist them.
Yeah.
We have to make sure industry has the labor they need.
I mean, CITA truly believe that work is the right organization to really control, like a tower of control of all those moving parts. It's a very fluid environment, continuously changing. And, we really want, and I'm glad that they are going to additional resource because poor Laura going to have to suffer for the next 3 months and potentially even more because, our vision will be beyond the reopening that, we continue to use work as really the platform for human capital. All the decisions we made for long term, for every business actually should be done around that concept. So we certainly want to support that, and we will try to collaborate beyond, as the data keep on shifting and moving on how do we adapt. Now, there is a couple issues also that we have highlighted early on is that sometimes supply and demand is different depending on the position. Like, for example, especially restaurants are, high demand of work permit, and we don't always find on the island the supply for those jobs. So sometimes there is an excess for certain position and actually a deficiency on the other. So again, it's something that we're going to work collaboratively to maximize every opportunity we will have.
Talking about maximizing opportunities, do we have any kind of commitments from employers about employing local people that might have a ganja conviction or a minor misdemeanor or small criminal record convictions? Do we have some kind of commitment that you would take on people that have
we have to follow whatever our guidance and recruitment. Obviously, we have requests for all those. When we have facing customers, we have families, children. So obviously, it's not a blanket statement. We have to obviously consider what are those things. So again, we're going to work together because when we see that there are some people, they are, not getting job. Why? Why is the reason? So I think, again, that collaboration is going to help us to identify why, because our goal is to give opportunity to everybody. So how is that going to happen? Only the data will help us to bring that. So that constant communication is going to help us to resolve those issues.
Okay, to encourage Caymanians to come forward for those jobs that are important to tourism, such as the bellhop, the front desk person, that's where a lot of people encounter their first person when they come on vacation, and it's almost inevitably not a Caymanian. So to change that, can you give us an idea of how much a front desk person gets paid at the Ritz?
First of all, I don't necessarily agree with your statement. You're making a blank statement that is not verified. Again, let's look at the data, because when we look at our hotels, front desk, and so on, you will find a lot of Camaian flag on our employees. So I think that is a statement that I certainly will reject. As far as the wages, I don't have the data with me, but I can share that with you later. It's not something that's secret. We have to share it with the government, and it's open book.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy.
Okay, thank you, Wendy. Before we move on to Sandra from CMR, I do have one question from the public in regards to marketing around the available jobs. What type of marketing is going to be surrounding the jobs that are available out there?
Well, the focus right now was going to be on those who have been displaced. Hence the reason we want them worked, right? So once they have registered with work, they will see all the postings themselves. Specifically, and this has been based on a request from CETA, most times you just have about data and information and understanding so we can make the necessary moves further down the line. Is it because we're not offering enough training? Is it because the industry is not acting appropriately? Is it because they're not willing to accept certain certifications? Whatever that is, we will be able to assess here at this hub, because we are committed to understanding the problem and then making the decisions to fix that problem. And that's why we want it within work. But of course, if you are not a stipend recipient and you would like to be interested, just get registered, and the team will still help you to try to get some of those jobs.
Another question, speaking of monitoring, actually two people wanted to find out what type of monitoring has happened with those who were they have another job that they're getting paid for? Are you just trusting the system and trusting people that they're going to honestly answer the questions on the survey, or what gives?
Well, one of the things that we found in respect to the data results, and you heard Gary say that ultimately, I think it said 79%, if my memory serves me well, are not fully employed, either not employed or not fully employed. So I think it's 87%.
86.7.
86.7, that's right. So that means that 13% technically are working, and we can identify who those persons are. Now, we haven't collected enough information to make an assessment as to whether they're deserving of 1,500, because we don't know what kind of job they're doing. We don't know what the income they have. We don't know how much they were making before as to how much they're making now. So this assessment takes work. And if you remember me speaking in Parliament, talking about those who are deserving, who is not, that takes a team. So we would have to employ a group of persons. And unfortunately, my ministry can't do that. My ministry are tasked with the marketing of our product. So you would have to practically start at almost an NEU. Hence the reason we were considering, how do we manage this moving forward after the end of this year? Because we want to, we've given the commitment to the end of this year under the current status. So how do we do that moving forward when we expect many people to come off? But you also heard that 33% of those persons may not get a job because they were in cruise. Some of them may be transitioned to stay over, some may not. And we have to monitor our continued assistance until we get past this global pandemic. So there's going to be a lot of changes in assessments, but right now, because the probability of either one increase in cost of living in the Cayman Islands, the truth is the probabilities of them actually getting more than what they were making before, and to spend the large amount of money for that assessment, it's almost not cost effective to do so. Yes, I am aware that there are some persons who are working even within government. At the time, the criteria was that persons who are getting the stipend was working with government, working in the industry before. So we're not going to get into those nuances right now, but I can promise the country that after December the 31st, there will be an assessment process as whether you are deserving, whether you are genuinely in need of that money. But for now, until December, it is going to stay the way it is.
Thank you very much, Minister. I'd like to now call on Sandra from CMR. Morning.
Good morning, Sandra. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you very much. A few questions. The first are relating to work. So there's been a lot of criticism of the Works portal and its ease of use being a problem. Do we have anyone that's going to actually be working on that? It's been a concern for quite some time.
Well, on behalf of the Honorable Minister, I know that he's aware of the sometimes technical difficulties of it, where he's trying to do an assessment of whether there needs to be any changes or not at this particular point, but he's well aware of the complaints of it. Most of the concerns that you're hearing about, trust me, we've all heard them, and most ministers are doing their own assessment in the various different areas. I don't want to speak on his behalf in respect to what he intends to do. Unfortunately, he's not here this morning, but I'm certain that if you put that question to his ministry, there'll be a competent answer.
The second work-related question is the competency of the people actually working in Works and how great of a job or not they do with actually pairing people up for positions. Will CETA and I guess other industry stakeholders be working closely with them? For example, I have an elderly person who's in the tourism sector, said that Works contacted her because she's registered, she's a stipend recipient. They contacted her to do tie stealing on a construction site. She doesn't even know what that means. So are we going to have work employees doing a better job of trying to assess where individuals should be placed even within tourism?
Again, thank you for the question. I can give you this commitment that yes, the first part of your question, whether Ministry of Tourism and industry will be working hand in hand with this special team to assist work with matching persons. But the second part of your question about the specific employees and their competence, I think that's a question for the Honorable Minister, which I said before. I think he's doing his assessment of those criticisms and concerns per se. And I'm certain he'd be happy to respond to you directly in respect to those questions.
Okay. One relating to vaccination, a listener wants to know for returning students who may have been studying abroad and got vaccinated abroad, will they be counted in that 80% as we try to push up the numbers? So they're coming back, they're Caymanians, they're obviously going to be residing here on a full-time basis and working. How will you seek to put them in your vaccination database?
Well, the Caymanians. So I guess from the residency perspective, they will be added into the numbers. So once they come back home, well, actually, they wouldn't be considered because they haven't got registered in the Caymanians. It's a good question. And I will examine that with the minister in charge of the statistical data, which is the Honorable Deputy Premier again. But how I see that is just an added benefit for more numbers of persons. But you're right, we could possibly be even closer to the number than we believe because of many Caymanians who've been vaccinated overseas. Matter of fact, do me a favor. Do we have a website that we can get people to, or email that people can give me an email, Ruth, that people can email to? Any email. I want to know if you have been vaccinated overseas and you're a student, you're a Caymanian, and you've been vaccinated overseas. We need to be able to compile those numbers to the numbers that we already have. And I'm quite sure my team will have an email for the public, and I'll send out a press release in short order. But it's a legitimate concern because obviously we do want to open, we want to get to that high figure. And if they're at home, we can potentially say, for instance, that may be 200 or 300 or possibly 1,000 to add to our numbers to bring up the percentage, because the percentage is the sticking point, right? So it's a legitimate question, and I will send out a press release either through Ministry of Education or through Ministry of Tourism, or actually the Minister of Health. Probably may be the best ministry to deal with that, to get those numbers, see if we can collaborate. But they would have to be home to be considered a part of that. Yeah.
All right. And finally, this is probably a question from Mark. I know that you're obviously the general manager at the Ritz. The Ritz doesn't necessarily have the best reputation in the world for appearing to want to hire Caymanian employees. So the question really is, once you've onboarded Caymanians, what will you be putting in place to ensure their continuity of employment? So what sort of programs can we be looking at for existing management to really stay on top of your Caymanian workers and ensure that their needs are being addressed? They have continual training opportunities, advancement opportunities within the tourism industry, within your hotels, and so on. For example, recently, I heard a situation where managers said, right, the ministry government is saying we want, for every tourism worker, we want like a 1-to-3 ratio or whatever. And the actual employees who are foreign managers are saying, oh, but I promised my friend who's had to go back home that once we reopen, they're coming back to a job. So I'm not necessarily prepared to hire a Caymanian in that position because somebody else is waiting for that job. So even if in the first instance, for let's say cosmetic purposes, a Caymanian is placed in the position, how do we know 6 months, 12 months down the line that they're not effectively, constructively dismissed or frustrated because, the manager really wants to bring a friend back?
Well, that's a long question, and loaded from the beginning. It's going to take another hours to respond and reply to every one of those. Unfortunately, some of the point that you made were, again, not factual, stating that we have a bad reputation worldwide about our Caymanian recruitment. That is already, a statement by itself, because actually, if you should see we might actually be one of the larger employers of Caymanian into hospitality industry. The fact that we have a larger population, that's one thing. And then, again, I will refer you to understand all the initiative that we do on continuous basis, from training, development, internship, and we had some great success. So I think that, again, before we throw that into the arena, that's potentially a detrimental to our industry to attract more Caymanian. Let's look at the data. Let's look what's happened. In the meantime, I want you to understand that the global environment right now is going to be very difficult for us to recruit internationally. And it is our best interest as an industry to recruit as many Caymanians as we can right now. On the top of that, we have a lap of time. We have a time right now to be able to provide all those training and elevate potentially some employees to be really performant and comfortable in their job. So again, I think let's objectively look at what is the situation, what we are doing already about it, and how we can improve upon it for the future.
Right.
But I can promise you that genuinely, we all need as many Caymanians as we can in our industry to get to those numbers that we need.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Any final words from the panel?
Members? No? No?
No.
Okay. That being said, I want to thank Mark for coming on. It's really an honor to start working positively together moving forward. I want to thank Laura from Work with a C, that is, for her hard work so far and our continued hard work with her and her team. And of course, I'm super impressed with my team, Gary from the Department of Tourism. In closing, I want to say, firstly, please get vaccinated. It's so important. The only way we're going to get back to some level of normalcy, particularly with our travel and for those who work in tourism, and for us to make sure that we have the same income that we had before, is to get vaccinated. If you have any concerns, go to the government's website. There's a lot of data on there that can probably help clarify things to you in respect to if you have any concerns about it. The other part is reminding persons who are receiving the stipend, it's mandatory for you to get registered with work, regardless if you're working or not. We need to know. With that data, we can better assess and assist our Caymanian people getting back into tourism-related jobs. Remember, we're all in this together, and we only do these things to help assist everyone. And with that being said, this government is committed to a data-driven decisions as we move forward, and this is the first steps moving forward to that. Thank you so much, Cayman. God bless you, and I love you.
Thank you very much, Minister Bryan. And of course, thank you to the public, the media, and of course, to the rest of our panelists for joining us for today's press briefing. Remember, you can go online to stipend.rkman.ky for survey results, as well as to jobs.work.gov.ky for registration purposes with work. I'm Donna Bush, as always, thanking you for being here with us. If you'd like to rewatch the press briefing, please go online to YouTube On Demand, our CIG television channel there. Until next time, have a great day.